Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. The death toll keeps rising in the deadliest U.S. wildfire in over 100 years. The Biden administration says it's focused on finding those still missing, while outrage intensifies over failures to warn residents. NTD's Iris Tao has more from the White House.
That's as specialist teams continue to search for those missing in the ruins of the Maui wildfires. And the head of FEMA told us at today's White House briefing that search efforts have been difficult.
It is extremely hazardous. Nothing can prepare you for what I saw during my time here.
And Hawaii's governor warned that the final death count could be much higher.
They will find 10 to 20 people per day probably until they finish. And it's probably going to take 10 days. It's impossible to guess, really.
The administration says it has sent hundreds of FEMA employees to help with survivors on the ground. That is working with dozens of agencies in what it calls a whole-of-government approach. But questions are mounting over why the world's largest siren system stays silent when fires quickly spread into the neighborhood.
I hear there no sirens went off, nothing. We just had to know that ourselves. It was fight or flight. With no warning whatsoever.
The Hawaiian governor blamed fire damage to infrastructure, and a FEMA administrator, when pressed today about problems with initial communications, said this.
I can't speak to the initial communications and the warning. What we are really focused on right now is making sure that we do have continuous communication to help people understand what resources are available.
The state is launching a formal review into its emergency response, but some are also questioning a lack of comments from the president.
People of Maui, Mr. President!
The White House today defended President Biden.
This is something that the president takes very seriously.
But a press secretary also confirms that President Biden has no plans to travel to Hawaii as of now, though she adds that we will hear more from him in the coming days. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Georgia prosecutors are expected to file charges against former President Trump any time now. They're investigating alleged election interference in Georgia after the 2020 election. Trump has already been indicted in 3 separate cases this year. This would mark the 4th.
Former President Trump is facing election interference charges in Fulton County, Georgia. In the center of the case is a phone call between Trump and Georgia's Secretary of State on January 2, 2021. Trump allegedly said he won Georgia and asked the secretary to find the votes Trump needed to beat Biden. A Fulton County grand jury began hearing from witnesses Monday. Also on Monday, the court's website posted this document showing a list of several criminal charges to be brought against Trump. They include state racketeering counts, conspiracy to commit false statements, and solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. However, the court quickly deleted the document after posting it, saying it contained wrong information. It's not clear yet when charges could be filed. However, many expect it to happen soon. Trump commented on the case on Monday, saying, "I just hope Republicans and the people of our now failing nation see what is happening to our democracy and freedom." A sitting president has indicted, in many different forms and locales, his political opponent, who is substantially leading him in the polls. The Georgia case would be the 4th one against Trump. The first one was brought in Manhattan over hush money payments, allegedly to cover up an affair and clear his path to the presidency in 2016. The second one was related to classified documents found at his Mar-a-Lago resort and potential mishandling of them. And just earlier this month, the third one was filed in D.C. over his actions after the 2020 presidential election. The Fulton County Sheriff's Office previously said that Trump won't receive special treatment if indicted in Georgia, and that it would take Trump's mugshot when arraigned, something that hasn't happened in the other 3 cases.
More developments on the Hunter Biden probe as 2 top Democrats now saying the president's son should be held accountable if he's found guilty. The statements come after the DOJ appointed a special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden.
And we all seem clear that this guy was addicted to drugs and did a lot of really unlawful and wrong things. And we have said, let the justice system run its course.
If Hunter Biden has committed crimes, he should be charged with them. I'm a Democrat saying that.
Both Democratic lawmakers argued that the Justice Department should operate independently without being interfered with by partisan politics. David Weiss, a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in Delaware, was named special counsel on Friday. After reaching a plea deal with Weiss, Hunter Biden was expected to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor charges, but the deal didn't come through, and he eventually pleaded not guilty. Republicans expressed concerns that Weiss could have prosecuted Hunter, but ended up negotiating what they referred to as a sweetheart deal that didn't get approved. As the Justice Department has appointed the special counsel in the Hunter Biden probe, Democrats and Republicans offering different reaction to the decision, as you just saw. Joining us now to discuss the appointment, we have attorney David Schoen, who served as lawyer for former President Trump during his second impeachment hearings. Attorney David Schoen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, a lot of discussion on the Sunday shows about the appointment of David Weiss as special counsel in the Hunter Biden investigation. Republicans not happy, Democrats arguing he was a Trump appointee. How do you view it?
Well, first of all, he was an Obama carryover, but I think it's a very cynical appointment. I think it doesn't make sense on any level. I think it shows a certain tone deafness on the part of the Attorney General's office. I have to think these kinds of decisions are coming from the number 2 person, Lisa Monaco, rather than Merrick Garland, I think. But Merrick Garland ultimately is responsible for it. I'll tell you why I think it's a mistake for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think it's unlawful. It clearly violates the regulations for the special counsel. Section 28 CFR, Code of Federal Regulations 600.3, clearly says that the special counsel has to be chosen outside the government, meaning they cannot choose a sitting U.S. attorney to be the special counsel. That's clear. And it makes sense because under the first section of the regulations, the special counsel is to be appointed if there's a conflict with the Department of Justice or some extraordinary circumstances. So that's kind of number one. But number two, it doesn't make sense because it's a clear slap in the face to the whistleblowers who showed great courage in coming forward and said that David Weiss refused to pursue the investigation that he should have pursued. And he told them earlier that he couldn't do it because he didn't have authority. And then later he contradicted himself in his statement to the Congress.
So, Attorney Schoen, Democratic Representative Dan Goldman said that if Hunter Biden committed crimes, he should be held accountable, regardless of party lines. Are you sensing a potential shift among Democrats, at least when it comes to Hunter, not necessarily the president?
Maybe so. I think there are a couple of things going on potentially. Dan Goldman kind of says whatever he wants to say that he thinks is politically expedient, in my experience at least. But I think that Hunter Biden's sort of a pitiful character. I don't think anybody should have any great interest in seeing Hunter Biden punished, that sort of thing. But I think the real juice here is what's the connection to President Biden in terms of the financial dealing. So there could be a couple of things. One, they could be trying to cut their losses with respect to Hunter Biden and carve that out and sort of put him out of the picture. Or they could be part of a campaign, for some of them at least, to try to find an alternative to Joe Biden and therefore reflect a willingness to go after him finally.
I want to get your thoughts here. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis expected to get an indictment of former President Trump. All things considered, how difficult will this Georgia case, the state level case, prove for the former president?
Well, it will have some very sort of electric type of allegations. They're going to charge, one assumes they're going to charge under the State Racketeering Act. So they'll have broad allegations and try to make it seem as if there was sort of an organized crime scheme going on here to affect the vote. I think that if anyone were to listen to the full telephone conversation, they'd have a very different picture than the snippet about, find 11,000 plus votes. I think that there were a number of lawyers on that phone call. I think that President Trump was advised to make the phone call. I think that what he meant was, he had heard and been shown some evidence that was convincing to him at least that there were some irregularities and that they needed a full investigation into the votes. But I think that the other part of it will be this plan for developing a slate of alternative electors. It's going to be played up as a sort of sinister scheme. I don't think it was intended to be by any means. We'll see how it plays out. The other interesting part of it's going to be to see how many defendants are brought into the case. There's some speculation that could be anywhere from 12 to 20 defendants total. We'll see.
Attorney David Schoen, appreciate your insights.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.